Hey, Marcus here. Real quick one from me. Our goal with this podcast is simple: to deliver practical, real world insight that you can apply in life and business right away. And honestly, there's gold in every single episode. If you don't want to miss out on that, hit the subscribe button now. Now let's get into this interview with Michelle Shirtcliffe from Publica. Welcome to the Business Mastery Podcast, Michelle. Good to see you. We start with a high five always, mainly just so I can cut it in more easily. But good to have you and talk about your agency and your role as the CEO and dig into the wisdom that you've acquired over the years.
I like that wisdom.
I like wisdom too.
Yeah, it goes
one of my
with my
favourite words. Grey hair is a crown of splendour for the wise, as the proverb says. Tell us a little bit about you and what you are in the business of.
I am the CEO and co-founder of Publica, and we've been about for 15 years. And I originally founded it with my business partner, Mark Spurgeon, who is also my husband.
Congrats,
so that's
Mark.
been fun for 15 years. So I've had various roles in the business, and we've grown over time. I'm the chair of Canterbury Tech. So Canterbury Tech is a membership organisation. If you live in Canterbury, you've probably heard of us. And we deliver one of the biggest tech events in New Zealand every single year. And I'm also on the board for Word Christchurch, which is the Readers and Writers Festival, which we do a festival for every year, and that's in the arts. So I do a diverse range of things, and I also have my own event called Unpopular Opinions. So that's an event, 6 speakers, they get 4 minutes each to give their opinion. If they run over time, they get clapped off the stage, and we're just keeping conversations real, one conversation at a time. So I do a lot of things, but my main gig is Publica, where I spend most of my time.
Nice. Cool. That is a wide mix of things, and lots to dig into there, especially being a husband and partner in business. I personally know that brings with it some challenges and blessings. But I wanted to dig into Publica. Tell us about what you guys do and the agency that you have.
Yeah, so we call ourselves a digital transformational business. So what Publica is now is we work across a large range of services, and in the industry it's called full service. So we work through everything from marketing in the traditional right through to the digital aspect of it, digital strategy, UI UX, creative, and right into deep development as well. So we have a team of 25 people, and what you see from Publica quite often will be, we've just come off the back of being the marketing partner for the World Buskers Festival, so that work is really out there, especially in Christchurch, and for example, some of the websites we've done are like the Lake Wanaka tourism website, but we also do a lot of grunty development work. We have a team of 8 developers, which is quite a large amount of developers. So we do all the traditional things, and we could also call us a dev house in some aspects of things that we do. So when we do deep development work, we specialise in custom integrations. We make efficiencies for businesses, and we solve super hard problems. We also create apps as well. So yeah, it's
Nice.
a lot.
And how do people come across or come to search for a full service agency like yours?
A lot of people search on Google. And also, a lot of our clients, whilst there is definitely a portion of clients that work over all of our services, it is a little bit unusual that they will work over all of them. They'll come because they need a problem solved for their platform or their website, or their return on investment because they might not be getting enough sales, or they're having problems with the checkout, all of those kinds of things, or they just need all of the systems that they have in their business, they need them brought into one place and integrated. So we might get a client for that, or somebody's seen that we do the buskers work and events work, and they might come to us from that channel. We end up just by what we do, working over a lot of our services. Quite often, if you come for something that's really complex and hard, you end up having to do a little bit of work maybe in the marketing and the digital strategy area as well, so we can work across those services, but it's probably not what you come for in the very first instance.
Yeah. So they come for a specific problem and then end up with
Yes.
full service.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. And in terms of your position in the market, obviously there's other full service agencies out there. What's the space that you guys feel you do better than others or own more so than others in that space?
It'll be the digital transformation area. So taking what you've got, your brand, and amplifying that digitally. Nice.
Cool. And how has that been over the last wee while? Because I saw you talking about AI and just how you kind of adjusted and adapted to that within your own organisation, and even personally for yourself, learned to get pretty fluent in that language. Talk a little bit about that and how that's shaped the business over the last
AI.
Yeah.
Well,
or AI tools. I mean, it's
AI
such
tools. It is really interesting. A couple of years ago, it came out. With ChatGPT became mainstream, right? And there was this big influx of people using it, and that's sort of still happening today. But AI has been around for a long time, and our devs have been using it for a long time. It didn't just happen at that moment. So I think it became okay to use it, or okay to talk about it, and okay to actively put it into your business, or the education around it, and that you should be using it, and all of those things happened at that time, and people opened their eyes to it. But it's been around for a long time. When we had to go through a process of rolling out over the whole business, because whilst the devs were using it, and they might have been using it for efficiencies or for tools or whatever they were doing to help get us a better result for our development, our account managers might not have been using it, and our project managers. And so what we did was we integrated across the whole business, and to do that we had to bring everybody along on a journey, and we had to really test a lot of the different applications with everybody, so it became a little bit more mainstream in the business. But we've been using it for a long time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Yep, I think that's something we'll come back to in terms of the systems that you guys are using and some of those software tools. But going back to when you started the business, what was the vision for the business early on when you first started it with Mark back 15 years ago? Congrats, by the way. Amazing milestone.
Thanks. The vision, we had this really firm vision of how many people we wanted and what we wanted it to do, and this pathway that we were going to walk on to get there. And we got there in like the first year and a half, 18 months. And then we were like, what's going to happen now? Mark and I met at another agency. We met at work, and what we saw back then was a real silo between sort of brand and creative and digital, and we just really wanted to bring that into one place, and that's really common now. At the time it wasn't, and that was the thing that we really wanted to overcome. So in the first 2 years that we started our business, we started off in brand and creative, and that's all that we did, but we realised that we really needed to bring digital development in-house, and so we acquired a small web development agency at that time, and at the same time we brought in native development for iOS and Android, which was great, and we had this awesome service offering, and no one wanted one. We were really early, so that was really challenging, but we knew that we wanted to be able to run across all of those services and bring a cohesive solution to the market.
Yeah, nice. That's kind of cool, like to just have that vision and then just absolutely smash it out of the park so quickly. What did you do after that point? Like, did you guys go back to the drawing board, or was it just like, okay, we've done that and we'll just
keep going? Kind of keep going, but it wasn't how we imagined it, and I don't think that it ever is, and you don't know that when you first start, because you think that you're going to work in a really linear way to get somewhere, and it just doesn't happen like that at all. And for us, there was so many learnings. I mean, taking in a small development company, there's so much to learn. It is not the same as creative, and you definitely have to learn the world and learn how to operate within that world. And, that's not something that happened overnight. I mean, and we still today, technology moves really quickly as well. And so you just have to keep moving forward. You have to be really aware of everything that's going on around you, and you have to translate that into your business. And I think that's what we did right from an early stage. Mark had a really strong vision about wanting to have digital in the business, and he's a creative by trade, that he really works in the tech area of our business now. So he's just really adapted and adopted all of that and brought it into what he does. And now when he's talking to our clients, I mean, he can't develop a website, but he can be pretty dangerous.
Enough to be dangerous, yeah, knows enough to be dangerous. And what I'm curious about in terms of Mark and yourself, like who's more the visionary out of the two of you? Or are you both visionary?
We definitely both are. People get really surprised by that. I think at the beginning, Mark definitely had a vision of what he wanted to do until it got to a certain point. And I had the vision of how I wanted to take that to market and what the longevity of that was going to be. So now we're both risk takers, which can be a really uncomfortable place to be. So we've learned in our business that we need to put people around us that aren't risky, because it has to ground us, because we can take off in all sorts of directions, but the longer you're in business, the more you need to realise that you need to stick to the strategy. Stick to the strategy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So both similarly visionary, and has that continued up until this point? Like, is that...
No, I think it's only probably been in the last... it's probably 5 years now that there's been a real change in the sort of the leadership and the vision of the business, and that's purely because there's 10 years between Mark and I. And I think I made him go into business. No, I did. Mark, I made you go into business. And he was like, I'm going to do it for a certain period of time. And, he is there. He is still there.
Yeah.
That he's happy for that change to have happened. And what he really wants to do now is do really good work for clients and work on projects and create solutions and do that really, really well. And that's what he does. He doesn't want to be leading that charge forward. And so there was this moment where we swapped.
How did that conversation come about?
It evolved. It wasn't just a conversation where we said, right, we're going to swap. I was like, I've got these ideas, and he's like, yeah, I really think that you should do that. And we just moved in that direction. Mark and I met at work, and we've always worked together, and of course we live together.
Yeah.
And so working together and the way that we evolve and work as a couple is just really natural, because it's what we do. Yeah. So it was just a real involvement, and he was at a point where he just wanted to do something a little bit different. And when you've been in business for a long time and you're doing the same thing all of the time, it is nice to have a little bit of a change. And he recognised that in himself, and that's what he's doing. And I was ready to stand out in front of it and take it forward. And so that's where we are. And some days I'm like, Mark, can you just do that? And he's like, no, that's your job now.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think the classic progression is away from the tools and then into the role that you're in, this CEO type role. But equally, I think if you're passionate about your craft, then it can be equally as rewarding going away from that, as you said, the business leadership role and back into the craft. And obviously that's something that he's enjoying. Yeah.
It is, and look, in terms of our personalities, it's probably well suited this way round. There's things about leadership and that he found really difficult that I find a lot more natural. So it may have always happened that way anyway. But and he loves working with the projects and the clients.
What is it about leadership that you find easy and natural?
Communication. I find it really, really easy. And I am a communicator, and I do enjoy doing it. So yeah.
When you say communication, what do you mean? I think I know what you mean, but it's a word that I think often people might use to cover a lot of different things. So when you say you find communication easy, what are you referring to?
I find it really easy to talk to audiences. So externally, I find it easy to deliver talks, come on podcasts, and really talk about what we stand for and what we do. And I'm not so involved with clients. I am normally in the early stages. So really that communication is really natural for me. But internally as well, I'm also not afraid of bringing together a team and giving them a single vision and communicating with them to take them on that journey. And yeah, I mean, who's a good communicator and who isn't a good communicator? I mean, I guess that's really up for debate, but sure. I don't shy away from hard conversations. I like to be really strategically led, and I'm very happy to sit down with anybody at any level of my business to ensure that they are taken along the journey of where we're going. Mm-hmm. So I don't hide in the office at the end of the. We don't have an office at the end of the studio, so no hiding.
There's no hiding.
Yeah.
And talk to me about the hard conversations, because that's something that I think we all recognise. To be a great leader, we need to have the ability, or at least develop the ability to do that. What have you found has worked well for you as far as hard conversations go?
So we have this, my general manager and I, we have this saying in our office, and we call it the buffalo. And that basically means that if we are having the same conversation about something for 3 times in a row, we need to execute on something. And that generally means having a hard conversation between the two of us, or maybe with another staff member, or with a client, or whatever that means. And so I think the skill that I've really developed is that you need to have it pretty close to the moment. You can't do it in retrospect. And there is definitely a way to have it that is okay for all parties. And developing that skill, I think, is definitely is hard, as well as having the hard conversation. But I think the more you do it, the better you get at it. And it's also better for the person that's receiving it. And when we say hard conversations, they're not always conversations that are terrible. They might just be something really small that can turn the dial a little bit. But if you're having them when they happen and not just talking about it, at the water cooler, that gets you the best result. And I have to be reminded to do it as well, Sure. I mean, I can sit here and say this, but you just have to have the confidence, I think, to do it and develop the skills that make it a constructive conversation for both parties.
Yeah, I wanted to double click on that. The elements of a difficult conversation or a hard conversation that make it beneficial for both. What kinds of things are you thinking about as you approach that conversation?
I think you need to enter the conversation not in a place of conflict, to start with. And I think that it needs to be a way that you can clearly articulate what you're experiencing, understanding that you have communicated that with the other person, and then how you move to the solution is really important as well. And I think that if I am having a hard conversation, I'm definitely thinking about the outcome that I would like to get to, so we can move there together. And I guess it's not just going in and saying, I really hate the way that you don't answer your Slacks within 10 minutes. I think you're lazy. That's not the hard conversation that I'm talking about. It's like, well, if other people were thinking that you're lazy, right, and that's some feedback that I'm getting, how am I having that conversation to say, I think it would be a lot better if you could answer your Slacks in a more timely manner, because I think that we would get a better result for, I don't know, you'd normally give an example of something, of some way that it was going to result in a good conversation, in a good solution, and then what the plan was to actually execute that. And then you have to check in, obviously, to make sure that it's happening.
It's happening, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it's I think it's an un-Kiwi thing to do, oftentimes, have those conversations.
It totally is.
It's quite, we have a South African on our team, and it's quite refreshing because you're not guessing what they're thinking, and oftentimes I think we actually get in our own way because we're so indirect and we're so highly contextualized and looking for all these cues as to what it might or might not be, and hoping the other person will pick up on those, but they usually don't because it's not obvious. And
you're creating these expectations about what you think the conversation was, and both of you have got different expectations, right?
Yeah.
And yes, I've been there.
Yeah. And in terms of other skills that and we took in this specific to leadership, in terms of other leadership skills that you have just felt like easy or just in your natural lane, what else comes to mind there?
Well, I'm an accountant by trade, so I also not only have I worked in a lot of different industries as a management accountant, I also can remember numbers really well. So I think for me, one of the foundational pieces at Publica has been financial literacy in our business, and how we how we developed our metrics, how we model our business, and then what that means, and how we educate everybody on the business. Because I think that sometimes people see profit as bad, but I believe that if you're running a business, the idea is basically to make profit, and that is so that we can do so many things, that we can keep going, we can hire good people, we can train people, we can do all of those things, but breaking that down, A, and B, then what metrics are we looking at and how are we using those to perform in our business, and what they actually mean. And I think the one thing that I've learnt and that I have to keep relearning is that the baseline of financial literacy is low, and where you need to start having that conversation. Because don't get me wrong, I can have a conversation up there and people walk in the way and they're like, what was she? I actually don't know what she was talking about. And it's remembering that it's a learning and education process. And often you don't need to do it just once. You need to do that over and over and over again.
Totally. How far do you go with that? This is a hotly debated topic amongst many owners in terms of how much you should show or not show. How much do you guys show in your business?
So we're really transparent up to GP, up to margin.
Okay.
Yeah, really transparent. And I don't see how we couldn't be in order to be able to get the results that we do. Yeah.
So you show sales, your cost of sales and your gross profit. But you don't show anything below that?
No, we don't show anything below that. And to be honest with you, it's kind of, in our business, service related, right? Our main cost is our people. Right? And so that's where you get most of your flex, and that's the thing that you really need to work on controlling. Most of the rest of it is fixed, and it's fairly irrelevant. If you're doing the right thing up there, the rest should work.
Cool. And so how does that, I'm curious about how that conversation is with your people. Obviously they're understanding how much they're being charged out at and what kind of profits you're making off their hours, time. What's that conversation with them like?
So the way that we talk about that is for all the different services, and I told you about all the different services we do in our business, we have really dug into what the margin is for each of the different services. So, for example, we have project work and we have retainer work. And so we know that we garner a better margin on our retainer work than we do on our project work. But what that does mean is that we can reduce the rate of the retainer work for the client, so better for the client, better for us, and we can still get what we need. But our project margin is going to be a little bit lower, and it's different for creative, it's different for marketing work, but really digging into understanding what those margins are and then driving the team towards being able to get to those margins is how we work it in the business.
So they all have a target that they're working to, I'm assuming?
Depending on what the project is.
Sure. Cool. And do you get pushback from people in terms of like, this is what you're charging me out at, and this is what I'm getting paid an hour, either spoken or unspoken?
That is a really good question, and I think in previous agencies that I've worked in, that conversation is definitely alive, but not in mine, because we have really robust conversations around salary levels and market in our reviews, which we do every single year, and they have quarterly reviews as we go along, so they have an opportunity to talk about those things in that arena. So when we're talking about projects, it just doesn't come up.
Yeah, gotcha.
But that was, we did a lot of work to get to that point, and I have been in situations where I've had to have those conversations.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a pretty common one in service-related industries. If you've got half a brain, you can kind of work out what's going on, but often miss the context of what the risk in terms of that you guys have taken on as being owners, and obviously the overheads, and what kind of returns you would expect as a business owner, and as you said, market salary as well. But I like how you also have those quarterly check-ins as well. What do they look like in your business?
So everybody has to do a performance development plan every single year, and so that's done in collaboration with their manager, and so they set out what goals, so they're goals for work, and sometimes they can be goals that are outside of work as well, and so then we have quarterly check-ins to see how we're running against the goals that we've set out. So when we set the goals, we also make sure that they're aligning with the strategy of where the business is going as well, or particularly where the strategy of the area that we're working in, for example, in development, or so we're split into client and revenue and operations. So there'll be an operational strategy and a client and revenue strategy. So we align all of those things, and also our teams have weekly one-on-ones. Actually, they're fortnightly at the moment. Weekly is a lot.
With their manager?
Yeah, so we pulled those back to fortnightly. So the
Sounds like
opportunity to have the conversations, you get an opportunity on a regular basis.
And flipping that one on its head, what are the skills that you've had to learn and that you've actually found out along the way that like, oh man, this skill is just underdeveloped and I need to learn this across the last 15 years?
What have I had to learn about personal development?
Yeah, or in terms of being effective in your role as the leader of the business?
That the easiest way to achieve what you need to achieve is to be able to relate everything back to a strategy, back to a pathway of where you're going. I think that is, because quite often we can, all sorts of things come out, or, I really need you to work on this area. And the reason I need you to work on that area is because this is where we're going. And I think for me, that's been the catalyst to be able to have better conversations and not be worried about having those conversations as well, because at the end of the day we all need to row in the same direction, and if you can tie it back to that, it's really good. And also I think actually getting to the bottom of what concerns actually are, because quite often you can have a conversation around what actually needs to be said, but if you can get to the point, and sometimes that's not a one and done thing. Sometimes that takes a few conversations.
Yeah. Going back to the aligning or tying everything back to strategy, how was it that you discovered that was a skill that you needed to develop?
I always had a strategy in my head, and I see everything through numbers, so it was definitely done through numbers. And because in our business, when we started taking on larger and larger and larger clients, what we realised was that we needed to bring in strategy into our business to be able to, sometimes a client would want something out here, but they hadn't done the work up front in order for us to be able to get a return over here. So we had to reverse engineer it. So we brought in a lot of those skills. And by doing that, I think it really changed the way that I did my strategy. And so my general manager is a strategist, and she really helped me turn the business around by creating a 5-year strategy. And let me tell you, when I rolled that out everyone just looked at me like I was mad. They were like, 5 years? What are you talking about? And, yeah, so, but now when I do it, they're just like, oh no, I can see that. So what are we doing this year? Yeah. And that took 9 months to roll that out.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I find that with our business as well. Like often the things that come up with clients require some growth or development from us and on our business as well. And equally, when we do something, it always has a positive impact on them. But it's kind of cool to hear that, like you're teaching, you're serving these clients and they're needing strategy, and then you're like, oh, we need strategy. We need to develop this too for our own business.
Do you know what? It makes it so much easier to have that conversation when you've been through the process yourself.
Totally.
Like, I have a completely different state of empathy when I'm talking to a client.
Yes.
Because I went through it. So
Yeah.
when you're delivering something and they're like, you're like, I was there. I know exactly what to say now.
Yeah, it really does.
As a business owner and as an entrepreneur, like, you know, we all have egos.
Totally.
And we all want to be able to do everything, but we can't. And I think that enabling yourself to be able to learn from other people or bring in other expertise has got me where I am today. Like, I'm a lot more able to go, I actually don't know how to do that. I can bring somebody in and learn and work together to get there. Whereas, you know, when I started, I was like, no, I know I've got this, and you don't.
Yeah, that's right. Tell me about that, because I think that's quite a prolific thing in New Zealand. Culture in general is that the number 8 wire mentality, right? We can do anything. We can fix anything. We can sort it. And I think that carries over into business, often to our detriment. Like you said, it's not often until, I don't think everyone, or it's not common for people to realise what you've just said in terms of,
Really?
actually, maybe the skills I have, well, look at the size of the average business in New Zealand. It's not 30.
It's true.
It's not 30 staff.
Yeah, it's true.
It's more like 5.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I forget that.
yeah, that would suggest the majority have not learned that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm curious about is that something that has emerged over time, or is that something that you've always had since day dot with Mark?
It's emerged over time for sure, and I really like to collaborate with people. I don't always feel comfortable standing in that, like, I'm the boss and this is sort of how it needs to happen and you'll do this. And I like to have a group of people around me that are experts and work together as a team. And at times that's not good, because at times you need to lead and you need to be directive, for sure. But I think that having that mindset and just having that's just the way that I like to work has made it easier for me to accept help. And look, we've been in business for 15 years, so don't get me wrong, there's times when I've made mistakes and said I can do it, and like I can't. But now I know when I can't do something, I can pivot really quickly to, I mean, it just happened this weekend or last week. I was like, right, I can do that. And then I got there and I was like, because I don't do the accounts in our business, I haven't for a long time. And I was looking at something in our system, and I was like, I was wanting to look at our client acquisition costs. I was like, I'll just do that piece of work on my own. Everybody's really busy. And I got there and I was like, no, can't. Forgotten how to use the system. It's taking me 2 hours and I've got nothing. And I was like, I need to bring in the management accountant. I need to direct her to do that, to bring me the information so I can have the larger conversation. Stop, because you're an accountant and you understand numbers, doesn't mean that you should be doing that piece of work. And, you know, that's just a really small thing, but it happens all the time.
Yeah, and I think often those small things are just small things, but when there's a small thing every couple of days, then it's hours and then it's weeks across the year when those little tasks compound, and then before you know it, you're like, what the hell have I been doing all year?
Yeah.
When you look back on it. But yeah, that's a really good insight. And you also said about learning what is the actual concern here. Talk to me about that. Digging into when something's going wrong and or maybe somebody's upset.
Well, I think my general manager has taught me how to do this, actually. I think I have the ability to understand that we're probably talking at odds or we're talking around something, and I can intellectually understand something, but I think I've learned from my general manager the skills to be able to get to the crux of the issue. And it just happened to me with my general manager last week. We were I was doing some outbound stuff, she was doing some inbound stuff. We were working in the same area, but it felt like we were both trying to do the same piece of work. And we were just talking around what we were doing instead of being really black and white about it. And she just said to me, I've just got this feeling right now that we're talking around what needs to happen. And there's just this moment where she was like, I'm doing inbound, this is how it's going to work, and I'm focusing on outbound, and this is the piece of work that we need to do. But it wasn't until she said that we were just fluffing around in this conversation that was going nowhere. But it's knowing when to say that at the appropriate time, I think. And, if it was a staff member, potentially letting them say what they need to say, but it's like how you dig to get to the actual point or the problem, and when it happens. You're like, we can help you with X, Y, and Z. Now that you've done that, let's work on this. And it's always really pivotal because sometimes people don't want to admit where they are. Sometimes people don't know where they are. But if you can get to that, you can move them forward.
Yeah, I love the phrasing of that question or statement, actually, in terms of just, I get the feeling that.
Yeah. And so it wasn't, it was a really nice way of saying, I didn't take offence from it. She just was like, oh, there's something not right here. But when you say something like that in a tone to somebody, they're like, oh, what do you think it is? And all of a sudden you're in a different place to have a conversation.
Totally.
I don't think this conversation is going well.
Yeah, that's right. I know, and it is. I think there's a couple of things in that. There's the tonality around it, how the message is delivered, not just what you're saying, and it's also the timing, like you said. Because if you just started the meeting off with, "I've just got this feeling that,"
and you're like, whoa.
Settle down.
Yeah. But I think people do that, right?
Yes.
That's really common, and you've got to get them off. You've got to get them down off that ledge. And I find in situations like that you just have to let them talk and find your moment.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and not every conversation starts with two people that are in that collaborative mindset where they're open to hearing different perspectives, etc. So, yeah, different. But in the context where you do have that, and you do have people that are actually trying to row in the same direction, but you're just off track.
Yeah.
Both off track.
But that's normal. And I think that's the other thing, is that there is no perfect, and there is no perfect all the time.
No.
You do it right one day, and you might do it wrong the next day. It's not a linear thing. You just learn to know when you haven't done a good job of it and quickly correct the course of action. And that's what I found as well, is like, don't think that I'm going to do a perfect job every single time. I mean, you sit here and you talk about these concepts and then you put them into action and you're like, oh, I just did that thing today. And my husband will be like, yeah, you did.
Yeah. Oh, look, totally. It's so much easier said than done. And I think it's a little bit like parenting. I think you can get, you can read a nice book on how to deal with a kid who's stressed and under pressure and what you should say to them. And then when you're in the heat of the battle, actually applying that is quite different. But I just wanted to segue there into something you said around your kind of frame for business. You've said a couple of times that it's not a straight line, it's not linear. Tell me about that idea for you in business of it not being...
I think entrepreneurs and business owners have big visions, and I'll talk about me, and I think Mark can be a little bit like this, and we're just like, right, we're going to do this, or like, I see this opportunity, or this is my vision for this thing that we're doing, and you think that because you're there with how it's what you think that it looks like, and you think that you're just going to walk straight up the mountain, and that everyone's going to follow you. But what you don't realise is you have to start way back off the mountain and explain to everybody the place that you're going
We're going hiking.
how you're going to get there, what you're going to do when it goes wrong, and so you can actually traverse the mountain. So thinking about it in that way, it is not as linear as just putting on a backpack and walking up that mountain. And I think that's the thing that I've learned. Also, if I think about the growth of my role and what I do in the business, like I used to do all the finances. I was so in touch with every single number and every single element. You could ask me anything about my business and I would have been able to tell you in minute detail. That is not the case these days because I've had to move more into public-facing roles and do a lot more brand awareness. And you think that you're just swimming through really deep water all of the time. You're doing these things and you actually are moving in that direction, but sometimes you're swimming in the other lane and you need to come back on course. And I think it's recognising when you're doing it and having the confidence isn't the right word, but understanding yourself enough to know that you need to course correct. And that's what I mean about it not being linear, because we make mistakes as well. And I think also, I heard this really interesting thing about an entrepreneur. It blew my mind. It was just 2 weeks ago. I'm going to tell you about it. So you probably already know. But apparently entrepreneurs have this 6-month cycle. Mm-hmm. That they go through. Do you know about this?
No.
So as entrepreneurs, we start on something and we're like, right, we're going to do it this way, and off we go, and we get to that point where we've done it. But instead of doubling down and doing more of it, we're like, oh, that wasn't the Everest that I thought it was going to be. Let's do this over here. And then they go through another 6 months. And I'm like, I think I might be one of those people. So I'm like, I'm doubling down on more.
I'm laughing because that is so me.
Yeah. And until you hear it, you're like, oh, do I do that?
A 6-month cycle.
The 6-month cycle. I think it's because we might get a little bit bored, maybe. I don't know, or we have these really large expectations about how fast we think we can get there to do it. And when it doesn't get there, we're like, oh, maybe we should do something else. And that's when you shouldn't.
Yeah, I'm laughing also because this is a conversation that I had with my coach in December last year. And I was like, hey, I've got this great new idea for 2025. And he was like, he was so unimpressed. He was just, like, I was so excited. Was it? No, it wasn't actually. He doesn't know about that. But now I'm thinking about that. I've got to give it 6 months, 12 months.
Yeah.
And I remember just saying, like, I've got this great new idea, this strategy. And he was like, he was just basically like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
In no uncertain terms, was like, what are you doing?
And it's the external people that recognise it. But were you like, no, this is a really good idea?
Initially I was like, nah, I hear you, but my reasoning is solid. And it kind of was solid on a level, but on another, like, I didn't do what I was thinking. We didn't start the year off doing what I was planning on doing. We did what I'd already started doing last year, and I'm so glad that we did, because if I had have gone off on that tangent, we would have been like halfway through this year going like, what are we doing? Like, we have not.
And you would have come back eventually, but that's the unlinear
it's wasted
bit.
Energy though.
Yeah, it's the unlinear bit, right? Like, it's you going off and going round and then like having to course correct, and it's like, why don't we see that faster? I've used pivot like a million times. I hate using it. I'd use that word all the time. But course correct. Stick to the course. There is a time to change your strategy. I absolutely believe that. Or you outgrow your strategy for sure. But, stick to the course.
Yeah. And I also like the metaphor of the mountain as well, because like you said, I don't know if you've ever walked mountains before, but they're freaking horrible to walk because not only is it steep, but every time you get to a peak, you think, oh, now I'm at the top of that peak, I can see there's actually another peak up further, and there's this depression and then a rise, and it's often like that until you get to the highest peak, and then there's always somewhere off in the distance, there's another peak as well. But I like what you said about getting people ready to go to climb a mountain. What do they need, and how are we going to get off track, and what's it going to be like? Because often I'm like, this is where we're going, off we go, follow me, but I don't actually give the context for that. So it's a good reminder. What other mentalities do you think have been effective for you in business?
These
Or mental models?
mental models. I listen to so many different things and adopt so many different things, but I think it's one thing. You said in your notes, and you're like, what are the things that you need to learn and relearn to think about? And I thought about that over the weekend, and I think one of the things that I constantly need to relearn in terms of mindset is you can't do it on your own. And I have a fantastic team of people around me. They are just the most wonderful people, and work with them to get to where you need to go. Stop trying to do it on your own. And it's just a natural thing. You're like, I can do it. I can do it. I can lead the way. Come with me. And actually, no, I mean, you need more than one person. It's a team sport. Business is a team sport. It's a people sport and it's a team sport. And as soon as you realise that and harness it, you'll be in such a better place. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think there's a book, Daniel Priestley, I think it is, and he talks about like how he starts businesses now is that he basically gets money funding from the bank and then uses that funding to get the people that he needs, and then with the people he needs on his team, then the goal is always within reach because you've got great people. But I think oftentimes the way you start a business is, more often than not, is that you start it off with no cash and you try and do everything yourself. So that's baked into your thinking right from the start, is like everything's on me. And then the people come later, but you're still bringing that mindset of like, oh, I've got to do it with you, rather than like from the start. Imagine if we all just had X amount of money to hire the team we need and away we go. It'd be a whole lot easier.
Well, it'll give you a different baseline, right? Because the talent's there, so you understand what the talent is, you understand what the expertise are, and as a team you can move forward. Whereas when you are in a place where you've been doing it yourself for a year or 18 months or whatever, and then an expert comes in, you're like, that's not the way that I would do it. Okay, I'm gonna have to take your advice, and that's hard. That is not an easy thing to do, and you might do it in the moment, but to actually follow through with that, that's a lot more difficult.
Yeah, how have you dealt with that in your business? Because, like you said, you've got that, especially with a general manager in place who I imagine is doing a lot of those high-level tasks that you could be doing but are not doing.
She's way better at it than me, though.
Yeah.
She's, for me, when I see the way that she interacts and manages my team, I'm like, girl, you can do a way better job than I can do. Like, carry on.
Okay.
And she's really, really good. And so I think that kind of comes down to the people, but I don't mind standing aside. If someone's better than me, I don't mind standing aside, because for me, I know where I'm going. And if that means I'm going to get there, I'm so happy to do that. And as I said, I really like working as part of a team. I don't like sort of standing outside of that. So I think that helps, and that's just something that's innately in me. Like, Mark is a little bit more of a lone wolf. He likes, and that's probably why he likes the project space, because it's more sort of confined, and why he's good at sales, because quite often they're lone wolves. He's like on the hunt sort of thing. But it's just not really how I work.
Interesting. So it seems like for you that because you're naturally a team person and you want to collaborate, then you're okay with if you're seeing somebody in the team's more effective than you're okay with just going, you take that.
Absolutely. I think the thing is that's hard is aligning on the expectations, because my expectations are always really high, and if you haven't aligned on the expectation and you're like, well, I think that you're going to do X, Y, and Z, but actually you're just working on X, and then we come together and I'm like, where's the rest of it? That's when it can get really tense, but that's on me to make sure that we're really clear on how we're moving forward. And my general manager is so good at handling me, and my husband is as well, I hope, is that it'll be like, specifically, I'm doing this bit and you're doing that bit, and so then let's move forward together. And they're not afraid to have that conversation with me, which I think is really key, because if you get into that situation, it just all goes a bit ping-tong.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's not an easy thing to get to help the other person understand what your expectations are. I mean, for me, I'm super visual, so I find I see an image in my head, and I find it difficult to explain the details of that in their entirety. So often it's like, give it a go, let's check in at this point. If we're on track, keep going. If not, we'll adjust. But it is quite hard to give that full, like, go for it.
Yeah, I found, and Mark and my general manager, they know this about me. And so we go into a meeting and I'll be like, I've got this. And both of them will start drawing a picture. They'll be like, is this what you see? I'm drawing you a picture. And I can't draw the picture, but if they do it, I can fill in all of the blanks and then we can move forward.
Gotcha.
And it took me years to get people it took me years to realise that that's what I needed.
Yes.
And because I won't write it down, I'll just talk about it. And I know this really good AI tool, if you're one of those people, that will just change your world. Hannah, you're going to love me. That has really made that a lot easier for me as well.
Cool. Yeah, I agree with that too. And I think understanding, one thing that's changed my thinking around that is we use this tool in recruitment and with people called AccuMatch. And one of the things that it surveys people on is how they're convinced of information. And so...
Say more about that.
Yeah, so there's two parts to it, and one is about the frequency and the consistency and things like that, of how many times you need to hear it and how often, how consistently you need to hear it.
Is it 8 times?
Well, it's different for different people, that's the thing.
Right.
Like, some people don't need to see it a huge number of times, but they need to see it consistently. Mm-hmm. So they'll ignore, like, I've seen it 100 times, yeah, but if you missed one time and you went one and then missed it and then did it again, you're out.
It's like starting again, is it?
It's like starting again.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so that's really difficult if somebody has a behaviour like that. But the part that I use more is around whether people need to see it, do it, hear it, or read it.
Or 2 things at once.
And that's the thing, it's not just one, it's always a combination of those. So oftentimes, like, I'm quite a talker in terms of I'll communicate something verbally, but I have to force myself to write it. I like to draw it, but I don't like to write the words. And sometimes people need the words.
Yeah.
And
a lot of times people need the words.
They need the words.
Yeah.
And other times they don't. They just need to, or that you send them the words and they go, no, I actually just want to talk about it. Which is, communication is highly individual, but that's been a helpful tool for me thinking through that.
We're doing some work with one of our teams at work at the moment, and my general manager, she's leading it. And one thing that she did that I had never thought of doing was she delivered something that we were all learning how to do, and she had some literature. And she said to everybody, how do you want to receive it? Do you want it in writing, or do you want the video, or do you want both? And everyone went around the room, and it blew my mind that that person there who I thought would really want it written down wanted the audio. And I was like, that was a good move.
Yeah,
good
great move. Yeah. It's highly individualised, and like you said, it's not often what you think. Segueing into AI, because you mentioned that early on, how has that been integrated within your business? Because you said that the tech team was using it, but wasn't necessarily being utilised in sales and in the finance team, etc.
Yeah, so as times developed, so it was being used in the dev studio, and we were using all sorts of different tools. And I think some of the ones that I might list now we're not using anymore because we've
moved on.
Yeah, moved on. One of the tools in terms of business-wide that we really looked at was in our business, you need to write everything down. When you're scoping work, when you're having meetings with clients, you need to make sure that you write everything down. So we looked at a lot of the AI tools that would do that, and some of them weren't so good. But the one that has company-wide changed has been a system called Contented. AI. So basically, you just take a recording of the conversation that you're having, and you can upload it, and it will give you all sorts of different things. It'll give you summary, it'll give you detail, you can ask it questions, it might just give you a paragraph. You can write a LinkedIn post from it, you can do your social posting, and it has changed my business. Because it is, now we have everything documented all the time, not just whatever percentage of time it was. And it's easy to use. It's not hard to use at all. And so implementing something like that has been really key, because for me, as I said, I'm not a writer, but now that I can use something like that, I can just talk to it, and it will give me something that maybe I want to post on my socials, or I just want to send in an email, and I use it all the time, every day. And it's really elevated what I can do quickly now on my own. So it's been a game changer, and it's a game changer for our clients as well, because getting back a document in like half an hour of the meeting finishing, outlining what we talked about and what the outcomes are going to be, who's going to do what actions. It's all written down, away you go.
Boom.
There's it's not that interpretation of what somebody wrote. So that has been an absolute game changer for us. And we actually also develop with AI now as well. So we're looking at quite a few things that we have. We have a thing in our business called Publica Labs, where we develop new technologies with a small team. So AI is something that we've really been looking at. So we've got something.
So
we've got
watch
something
this
in the bin.
space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I think we have Hannah coming on the podcast in a couple of weeks, actually.
You'll love her. She's amazing.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. What other systems have you found effective for you? You mentioned the reviews and the everyone having a personal development plan and those 90-day check-ins along with their annual review. Talk a little bit about the systems you've got and processes as far as people goes in the business.
That would be the main one. I think in terms of culture, we really try and it's not really a process, but it's something that we really try and keep alive. So we try to do regular outings. That sounded really old, outings with our team. But they don't really like going out, they like staying in. So just really developing that culture as well, and that togetherness, because, we are a small team, we're only 25, but you cannot talk to somebody that you're sitting 3 people down from for a week. So it's really important to try and create those moments where you can actually have those interactions. And we, probably not exactly answering your question, but our team are really competitive and they love playing games. And so they have...
What kinds of
games? They play Monopoly Deal, but they've created their own rules. It's crazy. And they have this mad ads competition going, and every single day they sit at the table, it's about as big as this table, and they eat their lunch and they play Monopoly Deal. I mean, who would have thought?
That's pretty cool. Did that come about organically, or was that something?
It did come about organically. I can't remember exactly how they started playing that game, and they've played a lot of different games, but that's the one that's absolutely stuck, which is really cool. And so last week we were going to have a lot of the devs play, they do gaming. I was trying to remember then a game. I don't know what they play. But anyway, they were going to bring it in and everyone was going to have a go. We didn't end up doing that. We'll do it next Friday. But we have anchor days on Mondays and Wednesdays. And so you can work from home Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. That's not uncommon. But we have probably 80% or maybe 70% of our staff come in every single Friday. And it's normally to play Monopoly Deal.
Interesting.
Yeah, eat snacks.
Eat snacks and play Monopoly Deal.
Yeah.
It's really cool, though, especially in a team like yours, which is pretty tech heavy. I mean, in so many workplaces, you see people sitting around on their phones and not talking to anyone. So to have that kind of level of interaction and fun is really cool to hear.
It's really funny. The people that aren't playing will come and sit on their phone just to sit at the table, and just
just to be part
by
of
osmosis, just be part of the lunch table.
Yeah, I get that. And the anchor days, That is an interesting term. I haven't heard that before.
Yeah.
So that's obviously a policy that you have in the business in terms of giving people the ability to work from home?
Yeah, so we take a view that we're like incredibly flexible. When we moved offices, which was in October 2023, we had a lot of pressure from real estate agents to say, because we decreased our office by a little bit. It was only like 50 squares, but we thought that we could go to a smaller space, but what we needed was more meeting rooms. Anyway, we were advised that most people were pushing staff back to working 5 days. And it was this constant conversation that I was having, and I was like, no, we're not going to stop what we're doing because it works. And we know that if we want to keep our talent, especially ones that have got family, we need to be really flexible with them. So we let them obviously finish at 3 and go and pick up the kids, or it's 2:30 or whatever it is, and they come back online. But do you know what? You don't miss a beat. If you allow them to do it, you don't miss a beat with them missing work. Like, some of them are so conscientious about it, right? So we take a really super flexible approach to that. But we do have a rule that if you, unless you're like sick or have a reason, we want you in the office on Mondays and Wednesdays.
Yeah.
And they're like really busy days. And we've actually outgrown the office, but we just work it out. But it really works for us, and that's one thing I'm not going to break.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, and I think you're right in terms of treating people like adults. Like, if respect goes a long way, and if you give them that, and the rules are clear around it, I think it's great. I am curious though, how do you manage it when people are pulling a bit too far on their side? How often are you having to have conversations like, hey?
Yeah, we definitely have to have those conversations. I'd be lying if we said we didn't. And we just come back to, we have policies, we have a handbook, we just come back to that. But also we ask them why. You know, why is this a problem? Can we do something differently? And if we can't, we can't. If we can, we agree. Otherwise, we just let them know. But we let them know when it's happening.
Yeah.
We don't wait 6 months to tell them.
And back to your buffalo thing,
Yeah.
I imagine it happens pretty quick.
It does.
Nice. And yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of a really nice full circle point to kind of land the plane on there. What's next for you guys? Like, where do you see Publica in 5 years from now?
Taking over the world? No.
At your 20-year birthday?
Yeah. I would like to see us more heavily in the other 2 markets that we operate in, which is not just New Zealand. We work out of the US and we do a little bit in Australia, so I'd like to see us move into those markets, sort of be a little bit more established in those markets. I don't have a goal or an ambition to be the biggest agency in Christchurch, but I do have an ambition to just do what we do really, really well. And it's, for me, if I think about 5 years' time, I'll be that I just want clients coming to us because it is the top experience.
Nice. Yeah, that's exciting. And the US and Australia, how are you finding playing in those markets as compared to
New Zealand?
little old Christchurch?
Completely different.
Yeah.
Completely different. It's just so different. You turn up differently, you react differently, you move faster, they're bigger budgets, and some of it is, well, I can say this, it's exciting work. I think some of the developers are a bit like, that's a bit challenging. We haven't done that before. So they're really, so the clients that we work with, especially out of the US, are VCs, so they quite often want to do some kind of concept or something that hasn't really been done before. And so that's what makes that work really exciting.
Cool. Sounds like a great opportunity. And I'm going to finish with the hardest question of the day. which is...
You should have asked that first.
No, I've softened you up for this moment
Yeah.
over the last hour.
All right.
Which is, in 12 months' time, if you were sitting here looking back on just the most amazing 12 months, and you're just thinking to yourself, that just could not have gone any better the last 12 months, who would you have become, and what would you have done?
Who would I have become, and what would I have done? Well, I'm going to start with what I've done, and that would be that I continue to scale my business to where I want it to be, and that would be that goal for 12 months. That's what I would have done. Who would I want to be? I want to be more of me.
Beautiful. Nice place to finish. Thanks for coming on, Michelle.
You're welcome.
Done.